stock cars of NASCAR started 1991 off with a bang 1 month ago in the Daytona 500. The closing laps, Dale Earnhardt fails to sneak by Davey Allison. Spinning down the backstretch, he tagged Kyle Petty, setting up a caution flag for Ernie Irvan and his yellow Chevrolet. That caution gave Irvan the win of the Daytona 500. The second race was held at Richmond, and here the defending Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt's luck was just a little bit better. He avoided trouble, and then he thundered to the front to score his first win of the year, and already some think that he is on his way to a 5th championship. And then 2 weeks ago at Rockingham, it was Kyle Petty, then a little Kenny Schrader, and then more Petty, as Kyle overwhelmed with his Pontiac, duplicating his 1990 win at the Rock. Today, it's race number 4, 500 miles at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're just a few miles south of Atlanta, Georgia, at Atlanta Motor Speedway with live coverage of the Motorcraft 500 as the best that NASCAR has to offer are ready to battle on this course here today. Now we take a look at the challenge that lies ahead on this 1.522-mile oval. 328 laps, that constitutes the 500 miles, and Dale Earnhardt is the defending champion. But for the moment, the story here today is one of weather. The south of the United States has just been inundated with rain. That's not necessarily the full story here at Atlanta. Here is the weather right now. 90% chance of rain, but it is not raining at this moment. They have the dryers out on the track, and they certainly hope to get this race underway. As a matter of fact, they plan to start the cars right on time. Now, there are two big stories here today. One is the pole sitter. Another is a man back in the field. We have two pit reporters to cover, Gary Gerould and Jerry Punch. Let's start with Jerry.
Well, Paul, the unwritten rule in NASCAR is you need about a $2 million a year major sponsor to be competitive. But apparently no one told Alan Kulwicki what the rules were. For the second time in 4 events, Alan Kulwicki has put his unsponsored Ford on the front row. Alan, how do you do it without a major sponsor?
Well, I tell you, I owe a lot of the credit to the guys on the crew. You just have to work hard, work smart, make the best use of the resources you have. And we're running at a little bit of a deficit right now, but it's like any other business. You have good years, and I'm just sort of looking at this as a bad quarter. We're trying to keep the performance up, hope someone comes along real soon, and we've got a sponsor before the year's over.
It's a David and Goliath type story here. Kulwicki, David, on the front row with his unsponsored slingshot, while NASCAR's Goliath starts way back in 21st spot where Gary Gerould is standing.
Jerry, you wouldn't expect to find Dale Earnhardt back here in the 11th row, but that's his fate today from the 21st starting position, a man who's won here 6 times in the past. Dale, the obvious question is, how much trouble do you think you may have getting up to challenge for the lead, and how long may it take?
Well, we're going to sort things out, see how the track is for a while before we go up, try to go front, but we definitely want to try to get up there as soon as we can, and you don't know what the weather's going to do. We'll try to be there at least by halfway.
There's always been a show when this man's at the wheel. But keep in mind, 11 years ago in 1980, he started in the 16th row, and he won the race. Let's go back up front now to Jerry Punch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Grand Marshal for this 32nd Annual Motorcraft 500, Mr. Jack Klissel, the General Sales and Marketing Manager for Motorcraft Ford. Those 4 most famous words in motorsports. Mr. Klissel.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
looking to a somewhat rainy day in Georgia, one that we hope will not affect the running of this race. But even though there aren't very many Irish names in Winston Cup racing, they're going to need the luck of the Irish here today because there is that 90% chance of rain forecast. Now, NASCAR's plan at this moment, they've already started the engines. They're going to move them out onto the racetrack, and they're going to keep some of the drying equipment, the jet dryers and such, out as well, and they'll run around. They hope within 10 laps that they'll have the track dry enough to go racing. Now we're going to take a look at the start of this fronting field, starting with the 11th row, because Dale Earnhardt did not qualify on Friday. He did yesterday as the fastest guy here. So in the 11th row on the inside is the defending champion of this race, Dale Earnhardt, and second-generation driver Dale Jarrett. In the 10th row, rookie Bobby Hamilton and Morgan Shepherd, who won this race here last November. The 9th row on the inside is Jimmy Spencer and Hud Strickland driving Bobby Allison's Buick. The 8th row to the inside is Bill Elliott and Darrell Waltrip, both winners here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. In the 7th row, two of the young lions of the sport, Michael Waltrip and Bobby Hillin. In the 6th row, the 1987 winner, Ricky Rudd and Harry Gant, twice a runner-up here. Up in the 5th row, it's Derek Cope and Ernie Irvan, two of the most recent and unlikely winners of the Daytona 500. The 4th row, Kyle Petty, the recent winner at Rockingham, and Davey Allison. In the 3rd row, Ken Schrader, and last year's Winston Cup runner-up, Mark Martin. In the 2nd row, it's Rusty Wallace, who is back driving for Roger Penske, and Sterling Marlin, now driving for Junior Johnson. In the front row, on the outside, is Brett Bodine, and with his 3rd pole here in Atlanta, on the pole, Alan Kulwicki. So Alan Kulwicki starts on the pole. Way back in the 11th row, Benny Parsons is Dale Earnhardt. Has he got a chance?
Has he got a chance? Did you hear him tell Gary Gerald he's going to take it easy? There's no way Earnhardt's going to take it easy. He's going straight to the front. Dale Earnhardt has won 3 of the last 5 races here. The 2 he lost, he finished 3rd and 2nd. He started 31st back in 1980. That's the farthest anyone has ever started and won a race here in Atlanta. Dale Earnhardt will have a chance to win the race, and if he don't win, he'll be close second.
Well, I guess there's little doubt who Benny Parsons is going to be cheering for. Now, Bobby Unser, when you look at this field, you're looking at some tension problems down the line.
Paul, it's only the 4th race of the season. Tensions are already here. For example, Mark Martin and Jack Roush. If you believe the racing papers that we read, they're already arguing amongst themselves. 4 races in the season. Then you've got Jeff Bodine and Junior Johnson. Jeff is not happy with the 2-car team, we read. And then you've got pressures. You know, you got Rusty Wallace driving for Roger Penske, a guy that's just back into NASCAR racing. And then, like we saw, Alan Kulwicki, no sponsor, on the pole. Now that's pressure and tension. But besides that, if it doesn't rain, watch for a good race today.
All right, and there's no question that tension is exactly what they're paid to handle here in NASCAR. Now, much of the conversation this year has been centered upon new pit rules instituted by NASCAR. A year ago at this track, you would have seen a scene like this when the caution came out as everybody ran for the pits. But they had 3 injuries and, in fact, a fatality here at Atlanta last year. As a result, NASCAR created some new rules. Let's get an update on those rules from Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, basically what NASCAR's major concern has been is safety for their pit crewmen, and they've got to lessen the congestion on pit road. So they've made some significant changes in their pit rules. It's confused a lot of folks, but if you keep a couple of simple things in mind, it's not that difficult to understand. When the yellow flag comes out, you can bring your car down here on pit road. You can come in and get chassis adjustments. You can get fuel. You can also change tires. But if you change tires, you've got to bring that car back under green flag conditions and change tires again. Now, once the green flag waves, everybody goes out and they complete a full lap. The second time they come around and complete a lap, the pits are opened up to half the field, every other pit. They complete another green flag lap, the pits are opened up to the remaining half of the field. What officials have done is effectively lengthen pit road so there's no more than 20 men or 20 cars in pit road at one time. Once 3 green flag laps are complete, the pits are open to everyone. They have reduced the congestion on pit road, but most significantly, they've reduced the vulnerability for the crewmen who have to go over this wall and service these Winston Cup cars now rolling out. Paul?
And of course, NASCAR's concern, as well as all the crews and in fact the fans, to make sure the race runs just as safe as it can. You can see that the field is now beginning to roll away, but I think you can also tell that that track is quite damp, not really wet anymore. You can see some nice gray streaks, and one car sitting over to the side there, Benny.
Harry Gant has pulled out of line and is sitting on the racetrack.
And if you take a look way up in the turn there, as we take a look at Gant, you might have noticed that the jet dryer is still out on the track as well. And now Gant starts to roll forward and will hopefully rejoin his position. Now again, the plan of the officials here, as Gant stops again, the plan of the officials is to run several laps, perhaps as many as 10, perhaps more if needed, under the yellow flag, and then try to get the race underway. There's one of the jet dryers here at the track. That's actually a jet airplane engine laid on its side, and the thrust of the engine is face down onto the track, and boy, it'll dry this thing in no time flat.
When it goes by, there's a spot of gray about a foot wide that appears on a black surface. It does a heck of a job drying a racetrack.
All right, we're on board now with Rusty Wallace. Now let's think about what Rusty's thinking about. Right now, he's looking at the racetrack. And what is he thinking? It's what that guys like Bodine and Kluwicki are going to do. What are they going to do when the race starts? The track is wet. What are their plans going to be? He's thinking outdo them because he's got to lead the races. He's a high-pressure guy. He wants to lead. Board with Ernie Urban. Now, Ernie just won the Daytona 500, and last year he got his first competitive Winston Cup ride right here in Atlanta, finishing third. So he's going to try to figure out some way to prove to the people that those were no accidents. That he is a permanent driver and going to be a legend someday. Look at him, look around, and do his thinking right there. Morgan Shepherd starting back in the field. 2 of his 3 wins were right here at Atlanta. And his sponsor, Motorcraft, is also his sponsor. The race sponsor and his are the same. Now, what he's going to be doing, I think, is trying to figure out how to tie onto the back of Dale Earnhardt. Obviously, the fastest guy in the field. Get to the front and then figure out how to win the race. Look at the tension and the concentration he's going through right now.
So those are some of our onboard cameras as the field is out, rolling on the backstretch and trying to dry this 1.5-mile circuit out. We do expect to go racing here in Atlanta, and there's other great racing coming up on ABC later this afternoon. So stay with us. There's excitement ahead. And they run under the yellow. As yet, they have not yet started counting laps on this circuit. But when they do, you can expect the fur to fly, especially with Earnhardt trying to move up through the field.
Well, a lot of the reasons that running the cars around the track so that people know under the yellow is the track will drive faster with the race cars. The cars are very low to the ground. The exhaust are right underneath the cars. And as the engines run, they spray the hot gases on the track. Drives it a lot faster, but the laps will be counted under yellow.
All right, now when we look at the onboard cameras, keep in mind with a low ceiling, the helicopter that gets that information may not always be able to operate. We'll do our best.
Let's take a look at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Each turn is banked 24 degrees and each turn is a half-mile long. Yesterday afternoon, we got to take a lap with Morgan Shepherd. Here we're going by the start-finish line down in turn 1, 190 miles per hour. And look how flat this corner looks. It's banked 24 degrees. He's down low on the bottom of the racetrack. He don't want to get too high because there's a bump coming off too. He does not want to hit. Down the back straight, once again accelerating up to 190 miles per hour. Ducking low in turn 3. Up the racetrack a little bit. Your car has to be handling perfectly to be down where Kyle Petty is. You want to be up in the middle of the racetrack where it's smoothest. Up coming off turn 4 up against the wall. We've now completed the lap with Morgan Shepherd in the Motorcraft Ford.
All right, still watching the starting line though, as we're hoping to see a green flag just any time. But while we wait, let's go down to Rusty Wallace's pit. Here's Jerry Punch.
Paul, a lot of concern here on pit road about the track conditions today. Now, with the rain last night, it has rushed all the rubber off the racetrack, and that's created a problem, a real guessing game for the crews. I'm with Jimmy Makar, the crew chief for Rusty Wallace. And Jimmy, what have you had to do to the car to try to adjust for the rain?
Well, you know, we've had to loosen the car up just a little bit since the last practice. With the rain coming like it did and washing the rubber off the racetrack, it's tending to tighten the cars up a little bit. So we went ahead and took a round of wedge out of the car to loosen it up just a little. Some of the guys may have to do a little bit more than that because their cars may have been a little tighter than ours, but we were pretty neutral yesterday afternoon, so we just took one round out, and we'll see how it goes from there.
So they're concerned about that right front tire possibly getting a lot of heat early on here. Let me ask you quickly, what's Rusty saying about the racetrack right now?
Well, right now he said there's several spots that are drying out pretty good, but there's still several spots that are pretty wet. So it's going to be a good bit before we get the track dry enough to go ahead and race on.
Still waiting for a dry racetrack. Let's go up pit road and check in the Earnhardt pits with Gary Gerald.
Richard Childress, of course, is the man who controls things for Dale Earnhardt. And as this field goes by on yellow, Richard, what is your strategy? We heard from Dale, but what have you told him to do now?
Well, we're going to try to get up to the front and try to get some track position back.
How hard are you going to push to get up in front?
We're going to kind of leave that up to Dale. You know, I'm sure he's going to, he'll be cautious, but he'll try to go up through that.
How much do these track conditions concern you when you know your car's right in the middle of a 40-car field?
Well, I don't think NASCAR will let us go until it's safe, and whenever they say go, we feel we can race anywhere on the racetrack.
This car has showed all kinds of muscle already this year. Any concerns at all of being able to get up and race with the leaders?
Not once we get back up there. It's just not good having to start that far back. A lot of stuff can happen. Once we get back up and get our track position back, I'll feel a lot better.
All right, we'll wish you well and keep tabs, of course. Richard Childress, his thoughts as we go back upstairs. Paul?
Harry Gant fans will want to know that he is running fine, got the car rolling forward, and just a few minutes ago, the starter Doyle Ford said 4 laps, we're going to see a green flag.
I like what you...
Take a look now at the starting field, the entire field. You've seen the first 11 rows. Now we'll look all the way down. And as we take a look at this starting field, there are a number of interesting facets. There are 10 Fords in the field, 10 Pontiacs, 8 Chevrolets, 8 Oldsmobiles, and 4 Buicks. Some new faces as well. Wally Dallenbach Jr. is making his first start in Winston Cup. Also Andy Hillenberg, his second career start. Dave Mater III, the short track specialist, is out there. So is Jeff Purvis, a former dirt track champion. So a lot of names, and of course, many of the long recognized legends of the stock cars are here and ready to go running. Matter of fact, we have to talk a little bit later, Benny Parsons, about legends of the stock cars, because Humpy Wheeler and Burton Smith, who put this track together, purchased it last year. They've got some ideas, and they're trying to get you involved. We have 2 laps now until they say that we're going to start counting laps. They're calling it as to green, but they may just say we're going to start counting here and put the yellow out.
They may throw the green and the yellow flag. Harry Gant stopped just a little bit ago. He changed his steering wheel position. All these drivers want the spoke of a steering wheel at a certain spot. When Gant went down pit road, that steering wheel was not just right. It's a simple matter of stopping, taking a pin out of the steering wheel, taking the wheel off, and changing it and putting it back on and sliding the pin back in. You can't do it while the car is rolling. He stopped and did that.
And it's very important that that steering wheel, that he knows what's straight, because he's got to have it straight for pit stops, doesn't he?
Exactly. He has to have the wheel turn straight so when he makes his pit stop.
Besides that, Paul, they're used to their hands going on a wheel in a certain place, and that's very important to a driver, as Benny was saying there. Another thing that's very important to remember, this is a high bank track, as Benny described it earlier, and when the cars are into the turns, because it's a little bit damp, won't hurt it like as if it were a flat track as compared to a flat track someplace. The cars really get a lot of bite if it's damp.
Well, there you see him running around. That's 51-year-old Harry Gant, who still feels real young at the wheel, from Taylorsville, North Carolina, making his 360th start.
You know, Harry Gant didn't get started in the Winston Cup race until about 1979. Before that, Paul, he was a carpenter. That's how he made his living, building houses. He and his dad and his brother. One day he was building a house. He was putting a roof cap on the house. And so he was sitting back on his heels. He'd drive a nail right, drive a nail left, and then he would hop back kind of like a rabbit to go to the next one. He hopped back, and it was a 2-story house. And you know what happened when he got to the end of the house?
Tell me.
He jumped off the end of the house.
Backed himself right off the house.
Right off the end of the house. And luckily for him, the window was open in the second ledge. As he went by, he was able to grab, and it slowed. He didn't stop, but it slowed him down enough that when he landed on the ground, it didn't break a bone.
And so he thought being a race driver was a little bit better, right, Benny? A little bit safer.
A lot safer than being a carpenter.
Well, the good news is the Gant has got his problem with the steering wheel fixed and is lined up in his regular starting position. Let's go down to the pits. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, one of the crew members for Dale Earnhardt just monitored a radio conversation that he shared with us, and Dale said from the cockpit of his car, he says it's very wet coming out of 3 and 4. There's a couple of spots, and he says if we go green under these conditions, he said, look out. I mean, it could really get wild, and I think we're about to find out because the field is picking up the pace as they thunder by us.
Next time by, they're going to throw the green flag and the yellow flag. They're going to run 5 more laps under these conditions to make sure that the racetrack is dry before they turn these cars loose.
Now we take a look at the front row there. The number 7 car, Alan Kulwicki, is on the pole. You can see the change in color of the track surface. It tells you where it is damp.
And we see the sponsor on Kulwicki's car. I want you people to understand that is a one race only sponsor. That's not something for the rest of the year.
And that actually happened after he qualified for the pole here. That car this morning back in the garage area was pure white. All that stuff's been painted on there in the last couple of hours.
Certainly nice of Hooters to help him out for one race, because Lord only knows Kulwicki needs it. He owns his own team, has his own racing shop, pays all of his own bills.
We saw Rusty signaling to the car behind him. Look, we're still on the caution flag. Don't be accelerating by me.
Now you see the twin flags come out. The green is telling the crews and the spotters that we are now counting laps. The yellow tells the drivers, don't speed up, stay right in your position. We got to wait before we actually get this racetrack cleaned up. Doyle Ford and Jack Steele keeping track of the field from the starters stand here. So they continue to maneuver around this track, and the hope is that only about 5 laps, and they may be dry enough to run.
Now, Paul, often the NASCAR officials go around and talk to the crew chief, because the crew chiefs will talk to the drivers to find out what shape the track is in, because they really don't want the drivers to start until they feel it's safe. Now, keep in mind one thing, the pits are not dry. Anybody that has to come in the pits early, they know they really have to be careful, because there's still puddles in the pits, even though the track is half dry.
And we take a look on board with Rusty Wallace there, looking up to the front row. And hopefully we'll be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway very shortly. Stay with us.
Fact, the all-new
28 is familiar to a lot of fans. The 1963 Ford belonged to Freddie Lorenzen. He won here 4 years in a row, 61 through 64, and was honored here today. In fact, the governor of Georgia came out and handed him the same trophy that he won back in his original days here. So the fans love that moment. Freddie Lorenzen here watching this race as well. Now the yellow continues to fly, but we expect a green just any old time.
They're talking about 3 more laps now before they're going to throw the green flag and put the cars at racing conditions.
Now this yellow situation at the start actually helps Kulwicki, because starting on the pole, he's going to get credit for leading and pick up the bonus points.
Exactly right. He now has 5 bonus points, and if there is prizes for leading the most laps, which he could theoretically win.
Now we mentioned the concern over the new pit rules as NASCAR continues to fine-tune them, but everybody's beginning to understand them. Before this race, though, we asked the drivers what they thought of them.
And I have to admit, when we started Daytona, I didn't like them. But I think the main reason we didn't like them, and I didn't like them, is because we had raced with the same rules for 30 or 40 years. And any kind of change, you kind of resist.
The one problem is, if you get behind during a race, if you're a little bit off with your chassis, just a little bit, and get behind, you don't have that pleasure of being able to come in on a caution, change tires, make the adjustments, and try to catch up.
I'm all for safer pit roads. There's no doubt about that. But there's too many uncertainties on pit road. I mean, I hate to be out there running strong, leading a race, and hit pit road for a green flag stop when I could have made one on a caution flag stop, and a caution flag falls and I go down a lap. I'm just not real fond of the way we're doing it.
It gets a little bit confusing in the later stages of the race, trying to get a rundown to find out where we're at, who we're racing with, who's in our lap. And I think that's the only weakness they have right now, trying to keep everybody in control, especially when we get lined up for these restarts. There's a lot of beating and banging that goes on, just trying to get lined up behind the pace car, because a lot of time people are a little bit confused on the position.
Over a period of time, we'll all get used to it, all get it figured out, and the cars will get back to where they run in packs and in bunches, and you'll see a better show after we get more acquainted with the system.
This is going to be a matter of sorting things out. At least NASCAR is making an effort to make it safe for the people that work on these race cars. And to be honest with you, from my standpoint, their lives are worth more than a little bit of racing that we're missing out on the racetrack.
Well, Well, Davey Allison voices the purpose, and I think Mark Martin said it best, in that everybody will figure it out, drivers, crews, and fans alike, as NASCAR continues to fine-tune it. Now, as they came across the line, you saw that the indication was given they will go green flag racing in one more lap. They will actually be completing their 6th lap when they do that. And to this point in time, they've been scored in their qualifying order, and that's given the advantage to Alan Kulwicki.
Well, keep in mind, these are all professional guys. They're the best in the world. They're going to be a little bit careful at the start. We don't expect anything bad from it because they've done this before. It rains in the south down here.
They move up into turn 3 here. You can see there's a great deal of dampness there. Not necessarily wet, but damp. The entire pit road has some moisture still on it, as does the inside of the front straightaway. But the pace car has begun to pick up the pace just a little bit. The field goes under the control of Alan Kulwicki. And Brett Bodine sits alongside as the rest of the field begins now to close up. They look to the starting stand. The fans all come to their feet. They're ready for a race, and so are we. As the green flag flies, lap number 7 is underway, and we're racing at Atlanta. Alan Kulwicki goes into the front. Bodine comes in just behind him. Wallace comes up to challenge Sterling Marlin for just a moment. Now Wallace drops backward.
And if you notice,
Rusty Wallace is off the pace early on. I don't know exactly what's wrong with the 2-car, but we see him already back to about 7th spot.
Rusty Wallace almost like he missed a gear coming off it too, though that's not likely, and started dropping steadily backward. Now the 22 car, Sterling Martin, alongside Brett Bodine as they challenge one another. And there is Dale Earnhardt, who will carefully, and I suspect very carefully, given track conditions, pick his way up through this field. He's still 21st right now.
Yes, we have to keep in mind, Paul, it's 500 miles. These guys know it's a long ways to go. They've got to feel this track out, see if they're capable of running 2 abreast, 3 abreast, as they often do right here in Atlanta.
Back to the front of the field. Marlin trying Kulwicki down to the inside. And Marlin pushes ahead as Bodine comes up behind Kulwicki. So the battle remains at the front of the field. And look at that group. If there was a question about the track holding, I think we've resolved that now.
Sterling Marlin has certainly resolved that, starting 4th and taking the lead.
Another thing that makes a difference, at the start the tires are cold. The rain, the dampness makes the tires colder. So it takes a little while for the tires to get hotter and their chassis settings to come back. And as they said earlier, the cars don't always handle exactly the same after rain as they did yesterday.
As we watch Sterling Marlin, just a report, Rusty Wallace has now settled in to about 7th or 8th spot, so his car is running okay.
Sterling Marlin out of a great racing family. As we take a look from Rusty Wallace's onboard camera down in front, there's Allison and Irvin running just ahead. Marlin be looking for his first win here. 4 times he's come home in 2nd place. Boy, he'd love to roll up in the winner's circle here in Atlanta.
There's another thing that's going to be a lot better today. We have to find good things about rainy days. That is, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot cooler on the drivers. They won't get nearly as tired today as they normally would here at Atlanta.
Battle at the front of the field breaks off for just a moment, and there is Dale Earnhardt as he comes under Morgan Shepherd and now begins to thread his way up through traffic. But again, because I think the moisture on the inside of the track would have to worry somebody like Earnhardt. We take a look from Morgan Shepherd's car over to Earnhardt. Shepherd running in 16th place, and now Earnhardt comes past and picks up 15th.
I'm surprised at the caution that Earnhardt is taking getting to the front. He has moved up 5-6 spots, but still, you're right, he is being cautious on this racetrack.
Boy, look at him haul it down to the inside, though. He sticks fine, even though there are some damp spots. And he comes alongside Ricky Rudd's side car. But for the moment, Ricky isn't going to have any part of it.
Dale is having to pass on the bottom because the other guys are staying up where it's the driest. So when he goes down there, you have to be a little bit careful, and that's when you can see, like Morgan Shepherd or whoever's on the outside of him, running in a drier spot, comes right back by.
Now Earnhardt on the inside of Harry Gant. Down in turn 1, takes that spot away. That's Hut Strickland and Bobby Hillin in the red car, right directly in front of Earnhardt.
Except perhaps for the moisture, Benny, though, Earnhardt really likes to run as low as he can, doesn't he?
Yes, he will run low when other guys are up on top of the racetrack. But I tell you, he will run wherever the car requires that he run it.
Well, from the looks of that Chevrolet at this moment, he's able to run it about anywhere he wants.
That's what it looks. It looks that way. We're inside Morgan Shepherd's car. Earnhardt closing up on the back of Bobby Hillen.
Bobby Hillen, the 20 car, runs just ahead. The Oldsmobile Chevrolet battle here.
Now again, normally he could just go right on by Bobby Hillen. Bobby Hillen, who is driving a car that belongs to Dick Moroso, not a regular ride, it's not a full season ride. But he's staying ahead of Dale because Dale is being careful. There's no sense in taking too many chances when he's got 500 miles to go, Paul.
Oh, I hope that Bobby knows he's out there. Oh, he did. That always scares me coming off these corners in Atlanta.
Boy, Earnhardt took a chance there as he came to the outside, moves his way past Hillen, and now Earnhardt has moved up into 12th place as he continues to carve his way up through the field. At the front of the field, nothing has changed. It's Sterling Marlin, then Kulwicki, and then Brett Bodine, first, second, and third. Kenny Schrader is now beginning to move a little bit on the back of Brett Bodine. We'll keep an eye on that while we continue to watch Earnhardt.
It'll be interesting to see how Dale, who's out of traffic momentarily, how he can pull up on the other guys when he has an open racetrack in front of him. In other words, he can find his dry spots right now.
15 laps are complete in the Motorcraft 500. A real surprise. If you had come to this track early this morning, you probably would have said, no way, they're going to start. Well, typical of NASCAR, they started just only a few minutes late.
Also, let's just keep in mind also, Paul, that with the track changing again because of the rain, the chassis settings could be way off. Dale Earnhardt's car could be off a little bit right now. After they make their first pit stops, or when they do, we'll start noticing a lot of the guys be jacking a little weight in and out of it.
Back at the front of the field as Marlin continues his lead. And you can see he's really pulled out a lead. He's running just fine.
This is absolutely amazing just how well that Sterling Marlin has got that Ford hooked up.
Maxwell House Ford running at the front of this field and looking good. That's got to make a driver very, very happy. Of course, he's with a team now that didn't hurt anything.
No, that's right. Junior Johnson is the owner of this blue number 22. He's a teammate to Jeff Bodine that Bobby Hunter alluded to at the beginning of our show.
In second place is still Kulwicki. You get a glimpse of his car as he comes through there. Then Brett Bodine. And Kenny Schrader, for the moment, has backed off on his challenge to Bodine. Ernie Irvan has moved from 10th to 6th, and Michael Waltrip has moved from 13th to 7th. And we continue to watch the moves of this man as Earnhardt now begins to close up and set his sights on Hut Strickland.
His car 12, the Red Vestas Buick, owned by Bobby Allison. And he knows that Earnhardt's out there. He moves over. Earnhardt's going by on the outside. You mentioned a moment ago Earnhardt run on the inside, watching past cars on the outside.
Well, now Benny, it seems like once Dale has been able to move to the outside, or he's getting the guys in front of him to move to the inside, the passing is going a lot easier. So right now Dale is liking it on the high side.
I wonder why he's doing that. Is it, you think, because of moisture, or the race car just likes it better up high?
I think the race car likes it up there. Plus, I think these other guys are seeing Earnhardt's caught me. He's gained 8 spots. Why am I going to hold him up? Let him go by. We've got another 450 miles to race.
Lying just ahead is the Pontiac of Kyle Petty. Winner just 2 weeks ago. As we come back to the front of the field, there's Sterling Marlin. He is now 1.2 seconds out in front of the second place car of Alan Kulwicki. So the fight is underway. 19 laps are complete at Atlanta. Complete here at Atlanta. Sterling Marlin is still out in front in the Motorcraft 500. Motorcraft, like so many big corporations, have figured out that it's much, much more than just painting a name on the side of a race car. They've really been involved in hospitality here at this race. Gary Gerald went over to a wonderful party they held for the crews on Friday night. They've got a nice hospitality tent here, and they are putting on a whale of a show. Out in front of it is this 22 Maxwell House car at the moment. We'll take a look at the entire top 10 and continue to keep an eye on Dale Earnhardt, Marlin, Kulwicki, Brett Bodine, Kenny Schrader, Mark Martin, Ernie Irvan, Michael Waltrip, Davey Allison, Rusty Wallace, and there he is, the big number 3, as he's been slicing his way like a hot knife through butter up on this field.
And he's right on the back bumpers. We can see of Rusty Wallace, the Miller Junior Draft Pontiac. Rusty's trying to go inside Davey Allison as they go down the back. Not able to make it, but he moves over and says to Dale, go ahead, I'm going to follow you.
Boy, there is Rusty Wallace, too, who has fallen steadily backwards from his starting position in the second row.
It's going to be a situation, Paul, where the guys, again, are going to adjust their cars during the first pit stop. But Remember now, they can come in under the yellow, they can change their cars, they can get fuel, but they can't get tires under the yellow. The green is where most likely they'll make their stops, and that's when the guys will have to do their chassis adjustments, and I think we're going to see a lot of them doing it.
We see Rusty backing off the gas. That's awfully early, so his chassis is not right. Jimmy Maycart and the crew will have to make some adjustments when Rusty makes that pit stop. We can hear the engine from the in-car camera going by the start-finish line, about 185. Listen. He backs off. Normally they drive on down into there before they back off, so they'll have to make some adjustments.
Would that give you to believe that the car's too tight?
We heard him burp the gas coming off. Now I would think that it probably is a little bit loose because he burped that gas coming off, which meant the car sounded like it got a little bit out of shape.
All right, so Rusty Wallace appears to be fighting an ill-handling car. Not a situation that they can't change. By the way, Earnhardt now sits just 5.8 seconds back from the leader of the race, Sterling Marlin. So in typical Winston Cup style, the front of the field all running together, though the man making the moves at the moment remains Dale Earnhardt. Everybody else is pretty well lined up. Earnhardt now moves inside Davey Allison.
Davey Allison, the fellow who's won 2 pole positions this year, no victories, but the car, that number 28 car, been running awfully well. Earnhardt closes up in the corner and goes right underneath on the bottom of the racetrack this time, Paul.
I think what happens, we see right there, Penny, is that Davey probably has a little bit of push. Probably a little bit too much fight in the rear of the car. Earnhardt is definitely working a little bit better all the way around, high or low. But Davey will not be easy to get by.
There's Earnhardt trying Davey again on the inside. I wonder in a case like this, Benny Parsons, if they think about that situation at Daytona.
That's history. You know, when you talk to these guys, they'll tell you that's history. Let's don't worry about it. Let's go on to the next race.
For the most part, they don't even remember it until one of us remind them of it.
There's Rusty Wallace coming up. Now we've got a 3-car duel going right there. There's a little bit of stubbornness going on here right away. They don't have feuds from the last race, that's for sure. But they do have stubborn streaks. Earnhardt, we know. They call him the Intimidator. He's stubborn. Rusty Wallace, hey, he's got a new team this year. He owns part of it. He wants to show. We're on board Rusty right now. He wants to show everybody, this is my team. I'm partners with Roger Penske. Watch this.
Rusty Wallace, you watch from his brand new Penske car. Now that he's been able to kind of hook on to the back of Earnhardt, is he picking up an aerodynamic advantage from Earnhardt?
He is getting some aerodynamic advantage. The thing here is that Davey Allison is much slower than these 2 cars, than Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace. They just simply can't get by because they just can't take a chance this early in the race. If they get by the 28 car, they'll drive away from it.
So we continue to watch Earnhardt, number 3, work its way through traffic here. And if you're a fan of Darrell Waltrip, well, he started 16th, but he's not running well. He's been falling backwards, and he now runs in 25th spot. 31 laps complete. At the front of the field, nothing changes. Earnhardt continues to work on Davey Allison.
Well, remember, Paul, we said Davey is not going to let him by easy. Davey is very stubborn. He wants to show everybody the Intimidator's not going to get him.
There's something to be expected, though, as we take a look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And Kenny Schrader did get past Brett Bodine for 3rd place just seconds ago, and now Kenny Schrader is on the run. But a guy like Earnhardt, you really expect him, because the speed sort of seeks its own level. You expect him to be able to climb up through the field, but with each pass he makes, the job's going to get harder.
Yes, it is, because the guys get faster towards the front. But by the same token, Earnhardt is showing good sense today. He's not just doing that really hard charge like everybody thought he would do. He's methodically picking off every car.
Here's on board the Kodak Chevrolet of Ernie Irvin, following the Ford of Mark Martin. And Mark really needs this. He needs this because this has not been a good year. The first 3 races, they've not really had any success. Right now, he's running 5th spot. Ernie is 6th.
And what hasn't worked for Mark Martin seems to be going over to Ernie Irvin. Maybe he has some of the Irish luck. A year ago, he really didn't have much working at all. Now he sits in this car as the Daytona 500 champion. How much does that help him?
It helped him a great deal. It's established him as one of the best race car drivers in Winston Cup. Now look, Rusty's going to try to go back by Dale Earnhardt on the outside.
So we have two fights going right now as Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace battled for position. At the same time, Ernie Irvin was coming up and challenging Mark Martin. So we're trying to keep track of both of those for you. They're right together there on the course. There you see Wallace and Earnhardt, and if you look just ahead, you can see that other fight.
Right back by again. You can watch the air work as we watch the cars really close. Hopefully everybody can pay attention and watch. It's like Earnhardt is on the outside of Rusty. He is pulling Rusty up into him. Not to hit him, but pulling him up. The air from the car just kind of sucks it into it. Just like drafting works from front to back, it pulls the front end. Like Earnhardt is on the right now, Rusty's front end is probably pushing just a little bit.
I tell you what, if the military ever needs some special, almost secret sort of signals, they could come to guys like Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt, because from time to time you'll see them signaling back and forth, and they can communicate to one another a great deal.
Oh, they can. And I mentioned a moment ago that Davey Allison was holding up Earnhardt. Right now, that's not the case, and maybe it wasn't the case a moment ago. We see Davey has pulled out in front of Earnhardt 5 or 6 car lengths. So now, looks like Dale Earnhardt is starting to fight a handling problem.
And take a look way up ahead there as we're continuing to see action around this circuit in the Motorcraft 500. And watch from Rusty Wallace's car.
And Paul, keep in mind right now, as you can watch Dale's car starting to move around. Earlier, it wasn't doing that. One of the big reasons for this is that the tires get hot. Even though we've got a cold, damp track, the tires are getting used so hard, they're getting hot.
And it looks like we're beginning to pick up some drops of water, raindrops, on the windshield. Not enough yet, I don't think, to affect anything, but certainly enough to make you nervous.
Well, I sure hope not. I hope that it doesn't rain, because so far this has been wonderful action.
And I guess we should point out that just because we see it on the windshield, that doesn't mean that it's really getting down to the surface in any amount to make a difference. But it's a good first warning for a driver that I better look out just a little bit.
Makes the drivers nervous, Paul. There's very few drivers in the world that can get raindrops on their windshield or on their goggles and still go as fast as they could if it was dry. Even though they know the track's probably dry, there's always that thought that it could be wet.
One problem is when a raindrop hits a windshield at 190 miles per hour, it's not a simple little raindrop. It spreads out and becomes about 6 inches. And we have a caution flag on the track.
Caution comes out. No question about it. It's because of the raindrops that we saw on Rusty Wallace's windshield. And you see him pointing up there. Nothing on the track. You want to know where the trouble is, it's overhead. So Sterling Marlin took the lead from Alan Kulwicki, remains there with 39 laps complete.
Now, very often, what happens in a case like this with a flagman throwing out the yellow for the rain is the drivers, when they go by, will point up to the sky and tell, you know, the flagman, Paul, doesn't know, like over in turn 3, whether it's really raining that hard on an immediate thing or not. So the drivers point up and say, hey, it's raining.
Now, normally, in a NASCAR Winston Cup race, all the cars would come in. Earnhardt would start adjusting on his car. Rusty Wallace would start adjusting. Everyone would start adjusting and changing tires. Remember, Gary Gerald mentioned they can't do it anymore. They cannot change tires on the caution flag. Be interesting to see if any of them will go in for fuel and chassis adjustments.
Yeah, now as the teams begin to figure that rule out, there are a lot of tactics that you can play with that thing. We're beginning to see more and more of it. We saw some of it in the ARCA race yesterday, and since in a lot of ways that's the R&D center for the Winston Cup cars, you may just see a repeat of that. We'll get into that in greater depth here in a little bit as the field comes up. Rusty Wallace says, hi, how are you? Hope you're having a good day. I am.
And look at Rusty's windshield right now, Paul. That's too much rain. We know why it went yellow for certain sure. The track wouldn't be good right now.
Now as the pace car comes by, he, what they say, unzips the pits. The green flag comes out to tell them that they can come in at this point, should they care to. The pits are open.
And only one car so far has chosen to come down pit road. That looks like that's car 24. Mickey Gibbs is the only car that made a pit stop.
And we'll keep an eye on that as Mickey Gibbs comes to a stop.
And we see him in the rear, putting some wedge in the car.
That's in both rears, the left rear and the right rear. That means that they changed it quite a bit, and I didn't notice which way. Benny, did you see that? Which way did they turn it? Benny, did they put bite in or take bite out?
Put bite in the car.
Took bite in, so that means that the rear end was loose on the car.
And that's a perfectly legal situation. The key is in the changing of the tires. Mickey Gibbs not the only car in the pits. A little further behind him, taking advantage again of the caution. Another car rolls in for a stop. Benny Parsons, you got an eye on him down there.
And that's Bobby Hamilton, and believe it or not, they're adjusting the air pressure to the 68 car. See if they're adjusting the air pressure. They can't change the tire, but they can change the air pressure, and that'll change the chassis.
That's right. Well, what it's trying to do is change the stagger, the old outside diameter, I started to say the OD, the outside diameter of the tires, which tremendously makes a difference in the handling of the car.
Gibbs and Hamilton both out. 41 laps are complete. We are under yellow, and we keep a look up to the entrance of the pits, and still everybody decides they'll stay out. We'll return with more racing action from the Motorcraft 500 after this message and a word from our ABC station.
Motorcraft 500, brought to you by Ford Motorcraft. Choose the replacement parts that provide more peace of mind. Motorcraft quality parts from Ford. By the makers of Tums, the sodium-free antacid that's rich in calcium. By John Deere Lawn Care Dealers, nothing runs like a deer. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
Back in Atlanta, under yellow, the race started under yellow. Then we had some good green flag racing. Now with 44 laps of the 328 lap scheduled distance, we are back under yellow again because of rain. Sterling Marlin has led all but 9 laps here today. Prior to today, he only led 7 laps all season long, so he's having a great day. Let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Well, Mike Beam is the crew chief for Sterling Marlin, and he's come out from under the tarp here and into the rain. This has been a very strong showing by Sterling in these opening laps, leading more laps here than he's led all season long. Any one thing that accounts for this great showing, Mike?
Well, you know, all the guys at the shop, Wayne Dalton, all the boys, the fabricators, they worked real hard on his car last week, and you know, and the motor people, you know, they gave us a good motor, and we unload, we ran fast, you know, and Sterling, he's just, I keep telling him, these Fords, they drive better than anything he's ever drove, you know, so it's just we're learning, and I ran real well in the fall here with Bill, and I kind of used that today, and so, you know, we got a long ways to go to win a race, I believe, sometimes, and sometimes say, well, maybe we are ready. So I think if we can go green, he said right now he can take on anybody, you believe. It might hurt us later on in the race, but right now we're as good as anyone.
Let's talk a little bit about fuel situations. They keep going around in the yellow. How close are you getting to the point where you bring them in and add fuel?
Well, our cars, they've been getting good fuel mileage, and I'm not going to be too concerned about that. I run about 65 laps, you know, and then we'll kind of play it by ear. And I'm not going to let him run out this early.
All right. Mike Beam plotting strategy. We'll let you get back under cover here as the rain continues to fall. Cars are still obviously on the track as we go back upstairs.
And the rain picks up just a little bit. Here at this track, they're back using the bias ply tires as opposed to the radial tires. That is also a story here today. In fact, maybe a story in terms of impact. And take a look down there. You've got a red flag in the starter's hand.
That's not good news. That
Not
means
at
that
all.
they're going to stop the cars and see if this rain is going to go away, Paul.
Well, the track is really wet right now, Paul and Benny. The car's just not going to drive it. There's
Red
the
flag
red coming
comes out. So that'll bring the field to a stop in the order that they are right now. Of course, the intention always of NASCAR is to run every lap scheduled, and they're going to make every attempt to do that today. But if for some reason they can't, the race would be called just beyond the halfway point, right?
It would. If right now, if they would not be able to restart the race, they would start the race tomorrow at lap 47 or whatever would be the first green flag lap.
And if they would continue running 164 laps, would become an official race. But we're hoping, as are the fans, and certainly the drivers and crews, and I suspect you at home, that we want to see an entire 328 lap, 500 mile run. As we take a look down through the top 10, the pace car has them on the backstretch. He'll begin to slow and slow and slow because the field being told now by their spotters, by two-way radio up on top of the grandstand here, that they will come to a stop when they come into the pits. Really a shame because we mentioned earlier that Bruton Smith had done a marvelous job putting this track together, brand new garage area, and boy, does he have plans for the future. In fact, Benny Parsons, we may be sitting at this moment on what in a very short period of time is the backstretch.
They say in a couple of years this will be the backstretch, and the other side will be the front stretch, along with suites and hospitality areas. They're talking about spending $75 million here in the next few years.
And they brought a photograph in this morning with some of the plans that included, like at Charlotte, his other track, a marvelous condominium complex and everything. You think we can get a room over there?
I doubt it.
The pits would go to the other side, and there also would be the track. It would be another tri-oval with a racetrack going clear out into the parking area, or on the other side of the grandstand as we see it today, Paul.
So some changes ahead, and for the moment, static running as all the NASCAR inspectors come out to line that field up exactly where they want them. The crew's holding back for just a moment. With 47 laps complete, the Atlanta 500 will roll to a stop. They'll evaluate the rain situation. They have some very sophisticated equipment to do that. Not only do they have radar here, they have a connection with nationwide radar. And Les Richter and Dick Beatty and all the officials up in the booth can constantly update themselves on exactly what the weather is going to do and what it might do to them. So to this point, Sterling Marlin has led 39 of the 47 laps that have been scored as the race rolls to a stop at a pretty good pace of 143 miles an hour considering the two cautions. Alan Kulwicki led in the early going, and then Marlin took over. Under the red flag, everybody rolls to a stop. Bobby Unser, what does that do to a driver now who has been up, he's been running hot, and all of a sudden he and his crew have to roll to a stop?
The guys that were handling good, Paul, naturally would like to just keep on going because everything was good, and some of the other guys that were bad. But some of the guys are really bad right now. They need some changes. Now, they want the time on their cars.
All right, let's go to the front of this field. Gary Gerald.
Crew talking with Sterling Marlin. Sterling, before he slides out here and you get fully wet, stay in there for a moment and chat with us. Leading close to 40 of the early laps, got to be a marvelous feeling, but the concerns right now all relate to the weather and what's going to happen. So what are you thinking?
Well, we're just going to play it by ear. They've been calling for rain all day, and the boys on the crew, the Max Class boys, they just done a real good job setting this car up, and Mike Beam and all of them at the shop and everywhere, and we debated don't change it this morning, and it said, the heck with it, just leave it like it is and go for it.
So you want to, obviously, when you're up here in this position, you're hoping you'll get a chance to get out here and race some more before this afternoon's over.
Yeah, we'd like to get us a win on the belt. We got a couple spots open on the winner's circle, and we're going to do our best to try to win one.
They want to move this car, so we're going to terminate this interview. We'll go further up the line and check in with Jerry Punch.
Well, Dale Earnhardt has climbed out of his Chevrolet, and Dale, along with Carl and Richard Childress, you said you were going to take it easy early on, but you came to the front, toward the front in a hurry.
Well, we're working pretty good. I'd like to get a pit stop here and do a little bit of adjusting. I want to fine-tune it a little bit, but the car's in pretty good condition here, the way the chassis is working.
The last 4 or 5 laps before the yellow came out, the car began to slow a little bit. Childress and the crew were watching it. Did the car get a little loose in the corner?
Well, it's the qualifying tires. The tires were qualified on, and they were on the loose side. So once we get another set of tires on that, suit the racetrack a little better as far as stagger goes, I think we'll be okay.
What are your concerns now with the rain and the delay here? Do you have any concerns as a driver, or are you more worried about the machine itself, how the engine will respond when having to be refired now that it's cooled off?
Well, that's really our biggest worry is the engine. Once we get on our, a different set of tires, I think we'll be in better shape. The tires are really working good. This set here, like I said, is the qualifying set, and once we get on our race setup that we've already scuffed in and checked all out, I think we'll be okay.
Well, Dale, we're going to get a question from upstairs, I think, as we're standing here and getting pelted by some of the showers in the area. Paul Page, you have a question?
Well, Jerry Punch, you can get Earnhardt out of the way there and get him dry. We'll keep you in the rain.
Okay,
as the covers
we'll let Dale go get dry then.
As the covers go on most of the cars, you don't see any feverish work on the cars. Dale indicated that he might want to have something done, but the rules prohibit that. Can you run through those so everybody understands it?
That's exactly right, Paul. Under the red flag conditions, the NASCAR officials are spaced every few feet here between the cars, and the crews cannot do anything except cover the cars up. They can wash the windshield. They'll put tape over the cowl area. You heard Earnhardt very concerned about the possibility of cooling this motor down now from a race temperature and refiring the engine, of course, and possibly having a problem there. But they're not allowed to work on the cars at all. Earnhardt's car is very loose. They would have come in if they kept running caution laps, possibly, and tightened the car up. so he can make that car turn in the corners. His lap times slowing considerably, but certainly a problem here for Earnhardt, and they'll get that fixed when they go back to green flag racing. Let's go up pit road where Gary Gerald is standing with our pole sitter. Gary?
Well, once again here, Alan Kulwicki, you can see the rain on the windshield, and Alan got the helmet off here, starting from the pole position in this race today and chasing Sterling Marlin. Were you at all surprised that he had that advantage early?
Not really, no. You know, there's a number of cars that could run good here early. The track was still a little bit wet when we started the race, and sometimes it's a little easier when you got someone else to judge off if you're not the first guy. But Sterling's running good, but so are we. Our car's just a little bit tight in the middle, but you know, we think we can adjust that with tire stagger on the next set, and you know, we hope to stay up front here all day.
This is one of those situations where you can't work on the race car, and I know that it puts everybody in a hold position, and you want to be able to race today, but you don't know if it'll be today, if it's going to be tomorrow, when it's going to be, when you can work on the car. How tough is this mentally to deal with?
Well, it's, you know, it's hard. It's like you get yourself psyched up mentally to run this race, and you know, then you just have to stop. You know, it's like taking a prize fighter and boxing them 3 rounds and then telling them to go sit down in the corner for a while.
Well, Alan, we'll let you contemplate here. We're having some internal problems with our communication in the rain, and we're going to go, I believe, down pit road again to Jerry Punch.
That's right, Gary. We are getting some interference here with the clouds and some of the rain, but we have Rusty Wallace with us. And Rusty, when they dropped the green flag, the car went backward a little bit. Was that planned possibly for care's sake?
No, it wasn't planned. You know, the track was a little wet, and I was being a little on the cautious side, but I had the accelerator to the floor, and they were driving by me. But, you know, hey, the luck I've had lately, I just want to finish the race right now. You know, the car's handling pretty good. It's a little bit on the loose side right now, so I'm just kind of running to the first fuel stop to go ahead and tighten the stagger up a little bit or work on it. But it's running all right now. We'll probably got a little work to do when we get home. I know that.
You gave us some great shots from your in-car video camera of your duel with Dale Earnhardt. Now, he came up and went by you, and you guys were racing pretty dicey after your car seemed to come to life.
Well, it's running pretty good, like I said, but when you get 2 cars side by side this early in the race, and if cars start driving away from you, that's no way to race, you know. So I'll race them at the end. Right now, we slowed the cars down when we raced side by side that close, and I could see Kyle Petty catch us in the mirror, so I lined back up and we took off and pulled away from him again. But I just want to get the race in, hope the rain stops, and get this Miller Genuine Draft Mobile AC Pontiac victory lane.
Rusty Wallace, let's go back up to Gary Gerald, who's standing by with Ernie Irvin. Gary.
Ernie Irvin is here. Michael Waltrip, you don't have to run away. Both of you have come in here. I mean, I know it's not the greatest conditions for anybody in this point. Let's start with you, Ernie. How's your car working in the early stages?
Well, it's real tight right now, but, you know, everybody's got a little problem. They're either loose or they're tight. Sterling looks like the only one that's really in decent shape. You know, I mean, I don't think he's got anybody covered real bad, but, you know, at first he must have not been pushing in the middle like I am, and I think Michael's a little loose. So, you know, it's just going to take the car to come in to whatever the racetrack does, and it may be tomorrow before we find that out.
Ernie, we want to know now, before we got some time that we got to kill here, this nickname of Swervin' Irvin that seems to hang with you, it really surfaced, of course, after the prominence and the victory at Daytona. How did that all come about?
Well,
that's Michael Waltrip.
You ought to look at the back of Mark's car. You know why it is. I got his knocked all in. My right front's all caved in. I didn't do that much damage at Richmond on the short track, so I don't know. You know, it's something Jimmy Means gave me after a practice session at Wilkesboro. Jimmy Means left rubber marks all down the side of my car and come in and called me Swervin' Irvin.
How much does it bother you?
It doesn't at all. You know, I mean, I could be called a lot worse things. I have been, you know.
Michael Waltrip, a quick word with you. How aware of you all in the front of that black car with the number 3 on it, Dale Earnhardt, knowing that he's coming from the 11th row at the start of the day?
Well, I was surrounded by black cars. There's one in front of me and I think 2 or 3 behind me. So I really honestly don't pay that much attention to it. You know, my car was making good progress toward the front, and as soon as I caught Ernie, it went bad loose, and I was just kind of hanging on, trying to hold what I had until we could get a chance to work on it. Like Ernie said, everybody needs to adjust. I know I can be a lot better, and I'm sure Dale and all the rest of the guys feel like they can too. You know, he's a good competitor, but he's fun to race with, you know, and I just soon race him as anybody.
All right, we thank you both. Let's try to get dry somewhere as we'll go back and check in again with Jerry Punch with Mark Martin.
Well, Gary, a man who came here last November and had a shot at winning that Winston Cup championship and gave it his all. It came up very close, but Mark, today's run, a good one for you thus far. The car performing pretty well.
We're off to a great start. We got a little bit of adjustment to make at our first stop, but we're not going to have to stop early for it. The car's a little bit tight right now, but the car feels great. It's running great, and I hope we get this thing going again, because today might be the day to take that Folgers car to victory lane.
You fellas were so intense during the offseason, coming so close. Did that whet your appetite for a championship?
Well, it really did. But, you know, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. You know, we didn't get off to as good a start as everyone, including ourselves, expected. We've got a lot better race cars this year than we had last year, and the team is better. We're all better. We just hadn't had a chance to show it yet. You know, we need a little bit of time to work with our stuff, and we got that time in the last couple of weeks in testing, and I feel real good about what we've done here and real anxious to go. You can't prove anything in one race. I mean, it takes a period of time of, you know, beating these guys in, week out for people to say, hey, they're back, but we're going to do that.
You certainly impressed a lot of people last year. Let's bring in car owner Jack Roush for a moment. And Jack, you've already had one car win this weekend in the rain. Your Ford Mustang with Robbie Gordon aboard won the GTO division at Sebring down there in the downpour. So you must like these showers.
I really don't like rain, but, you know, when I look back, we've done very well in the rain. The racetrack at Atlanta here looks as much like the race we won at Michigan last summer as anything I can remember. If it'll just dry up a little, I think we'll be just fine.
Possibly an omen for the Jack Roush racing team. Car owner Jack Roush and driver Mark Martin. Paul?
So now you've had a chance to meet some of the key players. A little later today, scheduled for later this afternoon, though that could change. The International Race of Champions, taped earlier at Daytona Beach, round number 1. I'll let you in on a secret. You want to see one whale of a race. Benny, you saw that race. Don't let anything out, but you loved it.
I just want to say, if you're a race fan, you got to see this IROC race because it was the best one I think I've ever seen.
So we'll keep you appraised of that up in the grandstand. Well, up go all the umbrellas. We'll take a look at the entire field. And this, of course, is of lap 47. 328 laps, the scheduled distance, 500 miles. Sterling Marlin, the dominant factor so far, as he took the lead away from the pole sitter, Alan Kulwicki. $655,000 on the line here at Atlanta. And while there is a very soft rain right now, we're in one of those, really the worst condition of all for racers, because it's raining just lightly enough to keep the track surface damp. Now and then it stops, and Mother Nature teases you when she does that. So hopefully that will totally go away, and we'll be able to resume this race. But whether it does or not, we've still got an afternoon of racing action available to you here on ABC Sports. The Motorcraft 500 stopped, red flag, and we're holding off, waiting for the weather at lap number 47. So there's the entire starting field. You can see where everyone you care about is, and we'll be back with more from Atlanta Motor Speedway after this.
Fact: the full-size Ford pickup has more repeat buyers than any other pickup. Fact: the full-size Ford pickup sales lead over Chevy is wider than last year. Fact: our most popular model is priced $600 less than a comparably equipped Chevy. Call it leadership, call it winning, call it anything you want. The simple fact is, Ford is #1. Save now during Leadership Month at your Ford dealer.
Some men would rather live their lives sheltered in the harbor, and some would rather sail into life with the unmistakable scent of Old Spice. Clean, true, and classic. Old Spice, one of the legends of the sea.
Heartburn? You know what to do about that.
But what if it's heartburn plus gas?
Well, now comes Tums Plus. Calcium-rich antacid relief plus gas-busting simethicone.
No other antacid gives you that.
No, sir. To get rid of heartburn plus gas, don't get caught minus. New Tums Plus.
How hot can it get inside your car's engine? 570 degrees under extreme conditions. Take a leading motor oil. Take Mobil 1. Of course, Mobil 1 costs more. But under extreme conditions, when you see what can happen to conventional motor oil, it doesn't pay to play with fire. Mobil 1, isn't your car worth the extra protection? The all-time Indy 500 winner just changed his oil. Mobil 1 welcomes Roger Penske to the team.
The world's finest drivers take off in Daytona for their ultimate test of skill. It's the first leg of the International Race of Champions, today on ABC Sports.
We continue with our live coverage of the Motorcraft 500, but for the moment, the thunder of the NASCAR engines have diminished substantially to a stop, and we wait to find out the fate of this afternoon. For the moment, though, let's go down to the pits and Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, it is a wet wait here on pit road, but one of the drivers who manages to smile anyway is Kyle Petty. And one of the reasons he's smiling is because 2 weeks ago he led 380 laps at Rockingham. What a dominant afternoon. A great day for you. Does that kind of thrill carry over here, even with the dampened skies here at Atlanta?
We carried over pretty much until they dropped the green flag, and we started going backwards. It was we felt pretty good about it. But yeah, that winning a race like that and winning like we did, and with this crew as hard at work and many hours as they put in, then it carries over for a long time.
Now, you came in and made a pit stop. You're one of the few cars that managed to pit under the caution flag. What was that for?
Well, we felt like that with as many caution laps as we run trying to dry off the track, and then they went green and yellow at the same time, that we were really, really close. We were going to have to pit in another 8 or 10 laps anyhow. So we decided we'd go ahead and be one of the early ones to pit. So when they did start the race back up, or if they continued it, then everybody else would have to come in and get fuel. They would be behind us. We would move back up to the front of the pack. So hopefully if they started again this afternoon or tomorrow or however they end up doing it, then we've got a full tank of fuel with Harry Gant and 2 or 3 other cars. Everybody else will end up starting behind us because they've got to be getting pretty close too.
Well, if they go back to green, we'll see if Kyle's strategy will work. Let's go back upstairs to Paul Page.
Well, up in our broadcast booth overlooking the main straightaway, coming over from just a few feet away in his control booth, is the man that runs this event. You were busy for a while. Now you're in the decision-making process. This is none other, of course, than Les Richter, director of racing here. Les, what kind of decisions do you have to make now, and what can you tell us about what the program may hold?
Well, the decisions are NASCAR decisions, Paul, and right now we're hoping for a break in the weather on the front that is upon us, that there'll be an opening that we had about an hour ago when we started the race. And we have constant information with a program that we have with an in-house weather information system, and we'll be pulling up reports and hope that maybe we get a window in here where we can get the track dried and go back to racing.
You've got some pretty good computer assist on that weather information as well, don't you? I mean, it's not just you holding your finger up and saying it's going to rain or go dry.
No, it's state-of-the-art information that is gathered from the region, and is a composite is brought back to you in a readout that enables us to determine what's going on quite a few miles away from us here, and it helps us make a decision. And it's been very effective since we've had it, and it was good for today to help us get the race started, and we hope we'll go back to racing here in a little bit.
Of course, the good thing, Coach, is that the intent of NASCAR always is to get this race done just as fast as they can, but run the distance if they can.
That's the whole intent of our efforts, and we want to try to get back to racing here. It's a situation that when a force majeure situation like this happens, it's a disappointment to everybody, the fans, the racers, the track operator, and of course ourselves, NASCAR. But it's an effort. It takes a lot of people to put a show like this together, and I think you made a misstatement. You said Les Richter, and it's a NASCAR decision, and we've got a lot of great people working for us, and we're just as disappointed as the listeners out there and people that are here in the grandstands.
What kind of decisions during a time like this do you guys make over in the control booth?
Well, right at the present time we're on hold, and we're looking for a hole in the weather, a space where there'll be some opportunity for us to dry the track and go back to racing. And we think there might be one, and we're looking forward to the weather up there, the atmosphere, push the front that's on us right now by us. We have 35 to 40 mile an hour winds, I'm being told, that are pushing this front through, and we hope that there'll be a window there that'll enable us to go back to racing.
The good news is we've got a nice high bank speedway here. How long, when you get all the equipment out, what kind of equipment do you use, will it take you to get it dry?
Well, we got back to racing here in an hour and 10 minutes when we went to dry out the track to start the race. And we think that we can get it back if the weather was cooperating. You have to have the atmosphere helping you a little bit. You can't have the moisture coming down or a little misty type weather. But if we get the help from up above, we'll go back to racing.
All right, and you'll probably come back with the same sort of situation, run under yellow for a little bit?
Yes, we would probably do that till we really get a comfort level, not only from our standpoint, but we ask the various teams whose drivers are reporting to them the information, so that when we go back, we have the comfort level that the track's ready and they're able to go racing for first class.
All right, Les Richter gives us the word there. Now we can get a further update on that, because down by that weather computer is Jerry Punch. Jerry?
Well, indeed, Paul, and Les Richter was talking about what this computer is showing. They have officials here inside the NASCAR control center in the garage area watching this computer behind me. Now, we'll orient you a little bit here. In the very center is Atlanta. It's just south of Atlanta, 30 miles. That small dot right there toward Hampton, Georgia, that's Atlanta International Raceway, or Atlanta Motor Speedway. Now, it is St. Patrick's Day, but this is not the kind of green we want to see. Take a look. This green here is severe thunderstorm. We are sequencing this radar as the thunderstorms begin to move across the racetrack area in Atlanta. Now, behind that area, up to the left here, there's a window. That's the window that Les Richter was talking about that possibly will give us a chance to get this race into halfway. So earlier today, the thunderstorms were moving across here. We're hoping this window would move back across the track within the next half an hour or so and give us a chance to get back underway. But certainly they are watching this radar very carefully, and currently we are right in the middle of this big St. Patrick's Day green-colored thunderstorm. Paul?
Well, it's raining all around us, but you can see there is a pretty good hole that lies just off to the west, and hopefully that'll drift across Atlanta here, and we will be back to racing. For the time being, though, they try and dry this track, and race fans, they're the greatest in the world. They're staying with it. Place, Mario Andretti came across, so first, second, and third out. Here's another look at that situation. Little Al high in the air as he came across the bumpers. And then along came Cheever with no place to go, already committed to the corner. Mario tried everything he could, but still he got into Little Al as well. So first, second, and third place gone. This is Little Al, and that's when Mario came through to slam it. So first, second, and third place gone. The race continued. Now it was Mario Andretti fighting with Rick Mears, and Rick Mears in the number 3 car took the lead. But then Rick had his problems as well. He was running along with Dean Hall and Randy Lewis, and suddenly Rick just overcooked going into a corner. That set up quite a bit of confusion with just 3 laps to go. Here is an aerial view of the same situation. Rick sliding straight ahead. 2 other cars coming to a stop. Rick was able to get restarted after this. There were no injuries, but the lead went over to this car, Rick's old car, now being driven by John Andretti, a brand new team, the VDS Hall operation, and they scored the first win of the year, followed by Bobby Rahal. Rick Mears restarting, coming in third place, then Danny Sullivan, and then Scott Pruitt at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. Then, in yesterday's 12 Hours of Sebrings, 1/4 of the race, the 39th annual, was run with the yellow flag out. But it was the Nissan team of Jeff Brabham, Derek Daly, and Gary Brabham taking home the victory.
Paul, the weatherman just didn't cooperate with us. We couldn't get that window that we were working for or hoping for. And the rain has picked up here in the last 15-20 minutes. So we have postponed the event, and we'll restart the race at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning here at Atlanta International Raceway.
Well, of course, the bad news for us is that if we run it on a Monday, then we can't cover it here on ABC Sports. So we do apologize for that.
That's bad news, because it was shaping up to start out to be a real interesting race. And Sterling Marlin was out in front, and Alan Kowicki was following him, and it had all the earmarks of a good competition.
What about the cars themselves? What can they legally do in the meantime?
Well, right now the cars are impounded, and they'll not be able to do anything with the cars until tomorrow morning, and they'll be allowed to, before we start, to check the tires and make sure that there's air in the tires, and then we hope, weather permitting, that we restart the race at 11 a.m. MRN, our radio network, will be covering the race, and I hope our listeners that can't make the race back on ABC, which is, we're sorry that you won't be back with us tomorrow. but that they can listen on our MRN radio.
All right, well, we did our best. NASCAR, of course, did their best, but the weatherman just wasn't about to cooperate. No luck of the Irish here today for us at Atlanta, but the race will, in fact, run. We'll try to get you some updates throughout the week, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
One car.
Craft 500 has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Goodyear Eagle Radios, the best-selling performance radios in the world. By Castro, engineered for today's smaller cars. And by Speed Stick Deodorant. The wide stick gives you the edge. Speed Stick Deodorant by Menon. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.